Okay. Haha.
Haha.
Mon ami. Are we good?
Yeah.
Position is good?
Position is good. Everybody's
Is in the shot?
Yeah.
The dogs as well?
Oh yeah. So you cannot meet that.
Okay. All right. Bienvenue tout le monde sur le podcast. Le podcast ou le lieu d'interview. On va appeler ça comme ça. This is my guest today, my good friend, Kenny Dundorf. Thank you for being on.
Thanks for
chatting
having
with
me. First podcast.
First ever. So I'm gonna quote a video that I saw the other day, because basically the point of this, I'm gonna call it the red line of tonight's discussion is personal growth and setting yourself on that path of self-discovery, And so I saw this video the other day in which a man that I don't remember the name of talked about how in his perception of the things, there are 5 different types of people. And he starts with these guys. For him, there are those who don't know, and they don't know that they don't know. Second, there are those who don't know, and they know that they don't. Then he uses the word dangerous for the third people. He says there are those who don't know, but think they do. And then we have the ones who know, and they know that they know, because they educate themselves, they learn and everything. And last, we have the ones who know, but who act like they don't know, the very humble ones. And in my perception of Kenny, I would place you in the I know, but I act like I don't. Not in I'm manipulating people, but more like I decide to be very, I'd say you put yourself in that position of always wanting to learn or having that mindset of there could be something to learn. So let me sit back a bit, and be humble. That's how I would describe you. I don't know. What do you think?
I would say it's hard to look at myself and lump myself into one of those categories.
Okay.
I think within our relationship, that's generally the energy that I put forward.
Mm-hmm.
Is coming from the place of being careful to insert assumptions and meeting you with a lot of questions before I would.
Yeah.
I think there are other places in my life where I think I fall into the place of the ignorant. And I think that's something that I try to remind myself is there's just a tremendous amount that I don't know. There's an infinite amount that I don't know. And the amount that I do know is very limited. And whenever possible, I try to root myself in, I guess, the fact that everything that I do know, I try to root myself in that it's more so a belief. And what that means to me is that I'm open to the possibility of it being challenged or wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's a much more interesting and fun place to be. because you get to stay open, you get to stay curious. And as soon as you say, I know something, you're slamming the door shut for possibility.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like a lot of what we're going to say is not like anything groundbreaking. Like it's nothing new.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to have this discussion because I feel like people can use the fact of hearing, like let's not, even though it reassures you to believe that what you've understood is a truth, actually outgrowing that pattern of like, okay, I've checked this, now I know that's true. I've checked this, now I know that's true. It's actually like, okay, like as a whole, society has decided to put labels on things, which makes us interact with each other and like kind of like understand what somebody's saying. But like, as you said, like it's not as much fun. Kind of kills the life in like everything, I feel, you know? So yeah, that's why I want to talk about it. So, I mean, the other day we were on a phone call and I was being pushed around by my own emotions. And I was asking you, since you're 29, am I wrong?
Mm-hmm.
We'll have you present yourself a bit more after this, like just like what you do and stuff. But asking you, like when you were at my age, because I'm 22, turning 23 pretty soon. Like, were you already like walking on that path or not?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me. Tell me.
As in, was I walking down the path at that age?
Yeah, were you already like conscious about the fact that everybody has a path to walk on?
Yeah, I think like rewinding to what you said previously, where it's like we're not going to necessarily find ourselves in particularly new waters. We're probably not going to uncover any like secrets of the universe within this podcast.
Yeah.
What's important there though is like we might contextualize something in a way that allows us to see it and it to permeate our being more than it did previously.
To permeate your...
That means like to enter into our consciousness.
Okay, yeah, to like, okay, maybe like get some mud off. I mean...
Well, there's various levels of understanding, right? You can hear something for the first time and you might have no clue. Might as well be in another language, right? I have no clue what you're saying in French.
Yeah.
And sometimes something described in English hits you that way. Other times you might be able to understand it and grasp at the meaning behind it, but you're just scratching the surface. Other times you know it intellectually, and you say, that's true, that makes sense. And then there's a point to which you truly take something on board. And oftentimes there's a chasm between that initial understanding of an idea and truly letting it permeate your being. And that means like truly coming in and allowing it to have an understanding that is deep and applicable to your own life.
So you tell me if I get it, but I'm just gonna give an example. I played a whole year of tennis, a lot, intense, probably like 17 hours a week training. And probably like 3/4 through the year, I play a match in front of my coach and my ex, and I lose terribly. and like 3/4 through that match, I look at my coach, I'm like, bro, I'm just forgetting that tennis is about putting the ball into the fucking court. And like he says, yeah, I've been telling you since day one. So it's kind of like my ears heard it,
Yeah.
but it wasn't mine.
You've heard it hundreds of times, yeah. And you didn't possess it, and it didn't click for you.
Dude.
And that's what, like, information, hearing it, sometimes it doesn't click until you hear it the 100th time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't click until you hear somebody else's story that contextualizes it in a way that's close enough to your own life.
Yeah.
Where you're able to connect the dots. And sometimes it takes, like, putting aside your ego to, like, actually taking it on board.
So for example, let's just put a little bracket here. You co-own a business.
Mm-hmm.
Can you quickly present that? Because I'm going to ask a question. But
yeah, so I own a real estate brokerage.
Okay.
And that's myself and another partner.
Yeah.
I'm a bit more on the building side of it, the business facilitation.
Yeah.
And he's more on the real estate side.
Yeah. So yeah, you have like what, 20 employees more?
Yeah, like 17, 18.
Okay. Why I wanted you to talk about that is what we just said is sometimes somebody's going to receive information, it's not going to click. So I feel like most systems and even society put shame on the person not clicking to the information given.
Mm-hmm.
But as a tennis coach and a fitness coach, and I had a great mentor this year in fitness, even though he had ways of doing things that didn't totally click with me. But it's like I've recently realized that as a guide, like I quote unquote know more than the person in front of me. But like I need to make sure that I am giving the information in the best way possible for it to click as quickly as it could possibly potentially click.
Mm-hmm.
And so like my question is, you as a business owner, when you have things that you think about and that you want your employees to understand and make theirs for them to be more efficient employees,
Mm-hmm.
do you have a way to present that thing to the person for them to be, for it to be the best thing that they, like, I think I said too much, but I think like, how do you give it in the best way possible for them to then, if they're open-minded enough, it could click really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So I think one of the things that has like probably helped the most is whenever I'm looking to disseminate information or I'm looking for an employee to take something on board.
Yeah.
I think setting the stage is really important. And whenever I start a meeting, or whenever I start a meeting well, because it doesn't happen every time, I take note and I prepare, like, what is the intention here? I.e., what is the most important thing for us to accomplish within this meeting? And this
like
could
an anchor.
Yeah, and that's a question that has vastly improved my life of what is truly important here. And just taking the moment, or sometimes it takes a while to come to that conclusion, it really provides a light at the end of the tunnel, and it allows for kind of a beacon for you to move towards. So when you
Can you
start
give me another
there,
word for beacon? I'm lacking vocab right here.
So like think of it like a lighthouse, right?
Okay.
So like, yeah, it's very, very similar. Beacon and lighthouse are
okay.
relatively interchangeable.
Okay.
So it's like we're both ships in the ocean, and like we're trying to go towards that lighthouse.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in the ocean and everything's dark, it's very easy to see that light and know where you have to go. So this provides the same benefit where even if the delivery isn't perfect, we remember where we have to go. And if it's something that might be emotionally charged or might be a difficult conversation, there's always that unifier to come back to. What do we ultimately view as important together? And if we ever find ourselves off track, we can come back there and regroup. So that's like the overarching principle that's been very helpful. And then I think it's important to meet people where they're at and to understand, like, to what you were saying with the tennis analogy, it's like, I do need to understand who's in front of me. I do need to put it in a way that they understand, that they can come on board with. Are they more logical or are they more emotional? So in terms of giving that feedback or that direction or getting to clarity, I think it's important to put that out there in the best way possible. But oftentimes within business, you are pulling a lot of different directions. So what really helps is ultimately surrounding yourself with intuitive people who hold those same values and who hold that lighthouse off in the distance in the same regard as you. That is like the greatest unifier to come back to, that I think smooths a lot of the difficult conversations out. And ultimately, I think it's, what am I responsible for here is another really powerful question. Because oftentimes, even when you're coaching, you say it's my responsibility for them to get it. And I think that's good. I think it allows you to put out information in a better way. But when we attach ourselves to the result of, I have to change somebody, that's where we find ourselves in a bit of dangerous waters. Because the conclusion that I've come to is, I don't need to change anyone. I am going to plant seeds if I see that person as fertile soil. And ultimately, like, that is what a good employee is, that what is a good mentee, a good player. They're fertile soil because it takes the coach to plant those seeds of an insight, of a different piece of direction, of, hey, you might be able to be more successful if you swing with this motion versus that motion. But ultimately, you have to understand that you're part of a larger equation, that the other person then has to take those seeds, and it's up to them to nurture them. Or ultimately, they can say, I don't want to onboard this. This doesn't resonate with me.
True.
So I think that's another important component, where we always want to take like absolute ownership of things, but we also have to recognize where that stops.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably more complicated for you as like a business owner. Like when you have that conflict of like, oh, the person doesn't want to get on that ship.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm the boss, so there's that fine line. Because like me, as a tennis coach, I feel like since it's people come for and it's a game, I have that sensation where like people are like they blindly like follow what I say.
Mm-hmm.
And for most people, I don't even tell them that I'm guiding them, that I'm not pushing them to be like, oh, do this. On the forehand, I want you to do this. Like every time when I'm like teaching the forehand, the backhand, the serve, I say, hey, there's like biomechanical things that we need to respect. Because like, even though we have our differences as humans, we're similar. But within those frames, I want you to describe with your own words what's going on, for me to, when we are repeating those moves and those sequences of shots or something, it's your words and I can use those words and come back to it. Yeah. So that's how my tennis coach worked with me. And like, whenever we call each other, every time, it's like, there's just some people with who it just clicks. Yeah. Kind of like us, like it clicked like this. Mm-hmm. But with Greg, it's like, whenever we were on the phone, we kind of laugh about it every time. We're like, nobody will ever understand what happened during that year of coaching.
Yeah.
Nobody will ever be able to find that. I mean, for sure find it in other relationships, but with words, we won't ever be able to describe.
Mm-hmm.
Like we had moments like during sessions where we would just like look at each other and start laughing because I was completely opening myself as the fertile soil,
Mm-hmm.
and he was pinpointing where he needed to say what he needed to say. That's like magic. So
Yeah, I think there's two really important things there. It's like the first is you've described, in my eyes, what the epitomization of coaching is.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people think coaching is instruction.
Yeah.
But coaching, in my eyes, the best coaches, they understand that you already have everything. And it's more so, how do I ask the right questions
to unravel stuff.
And to put the responsibility on you to come up with the answers.
Yeah.
Because it's like, that gives a lot of responsibility and trust to the other person.
Yeah.
I think that's like really important to do with kids.
Oh,
Because
dude.
oftentimes we try to push them and guide them in a direction. They are much, much more capable than a lot of people give them credit for.
Oh my God.
And it's how do we guide them towards the things that are already there?
Oh my God. I mean, I'll give one more example and then we'll maybe keep on drifting on this or move back to something else. But I recently did a energy healing with Julie Soncher, very good, very nice lady, who was I was pushed towards her by Tamara, and that was great. So I knew that was going to happen. Yuki, Yuki, hey, Yukers, Yuki, come here. Chill. So
That's why we have editing software.
yeah, or we can just leave it. Yeah, we might edit it. We'll see. But like I did that, and then I gave a tennis class the day after to like 5-7-year-olds,
Mm-hmm.
and like I completely abandoned my belief that I knew more than them. Like completely. It was like an hour and a half of me just like, okay, of course, I've played more than you guys. Factually, on paper, I've spent 11 years playing. You guys haven't even spent that time on Earth. But you guys haven't been like, like rotten. I'm going to use a pretty powerful word, but like rotten by society and shit.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys are pure in a way. Dude, oh my freaking God. Like the session was amazing. I started the session with kind of what you said. I set the theme. I wanted them to really focus on not being too far away from the ball. And I gave a speech about Roger Federer, like how him and the two other big guys were huge because they worked on the details and stuff. And so talked about that, set the anchor, why it was important. Like, why is it going to make a difference, right? And then they just started playing. I gave like 250 balls. They made 3 mistakes. They were playing so good. I could just feel in that moment, there was something had triggered. We were all, the 6 of us, in a flow state.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And that's not even the craziest part. The craziest part is right after hitting serves. And like, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try it. I started hitting serves, and I'm like, I want you guys to tell me when my serve is bad and when my serve is good. Like when it feels bad, when it feels good. I never served like that in my whole life. And then they were doing it with each other, and I'm like, oh my God. It's like so much fun.
Yeah.
And because they're boundless. They have no limit. You know, they're like, kids are like, oh, running all over the place because they're like discovering stuff. They're like, oh, da, 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 da. And it's like, so like, I'm not saying it's like easy at all. It's not. But it's like when you put them in those like classes, 30 kids, you're killing the creativity. Totally. So yeah, that's that. But yeah,
The second part to coaching that you had stumbled upon before. I only got to the first part.
Please go.
Is it's the coach's job to tease things out.
Yeah.
But then on the other side, I think the important piece that you stumbled upon was it's a receptivity of the person being coached, the pupil. I think when those two things meet each other,
Oh yeah.
high receptivity with somebody who is on the other end also open, and you're meeting not from a point of letting preconceived notions dictate your path,
Yeah.
but instead meeting this person who's in front of you exactly where they are and allowing your knowledge to flow through you. That's when things really click and get interesting.
Mm.
And then the other side is receptive. And then it creates something that is so much more than the sum of its parts. It creates something that kind of grows exponentially.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. Did we talk about no, I think we did not really talk about how, like, when
The
what-
path.
the path.
Mm.
Like, yeah. Is there like one day or one kind of like period where you're like, okay, life is more than what I've experienced? You know what I mean?
No.
Okay. Is there like a moment where you thought, okay, like my emotions are them, they're not me, type of thing, where like, okay, I get angry, I get happy, but like I'm like, I can outgrow them, I can live with them, enjoy them, but like I can walk through life with consciousness and awareness of my surroundings.
I don't think I can go back to like any semblance of like a awakening or a day of that. The reason that I brought up kind of like the notion of permeating your being is the path that I've been on has been a succession of those where I've come into contact with something, and you have both the intellectual side where it's like, that makes sense, I can understand that, and I can reason my way through that as a potential truth. And then there's something that's on the kind of more emotional and dare I say spiritual side of things, where it's like, that also feels right. And oftentimes it takes the 70th, the 80th, the 100th time for you to come in contact with that same idea, for it to really click and come on board. And I think that is the path for me. It's like, how many things can I run into? How many things can I challenge? And how many things can I ultimately truly take on board to come and change my life? So in terms of setting myself aside from emotions, I think it's been...
Yeah, no, I said that way, but
I've been on the path to understanding that could be a beneficial type of thing to do.
I like that way of saying it.
And I would say over the past like 5 or 6 years especially, there's been some level of intentionality to try to integrate that into my life. And that comes in a lot of different ways. And it's definitely not like, there's definitely not been that moment where something happened to me and just like everything was like a 180-degree turn. It's been a lot of oscillation where it's like, I'll take a 1-degree turn that way. But also there's been like the regression.
Damn, bro. That you that hit you.
Yeah.
Damn.
So Yeah, it's there has not been that 180
Sorry, you
degree.
said there's been regression after you talked about 1% turns. And
Yeah, so there's like the turn towards that and the turn towards taking that on board, and for that to not only be intellectually understood, but for it to, like, the final frontier of like that process is you first hear it and don't understand it, or maybe you do, but then all the way on the other end is this is fully integrated into my life, where it happens unconsciously. Before that, it's like you have to consciously bring it into your life, but it's not fully integrated, so you're starting to almost like build the habit, and before that it needs to actually
occur to you,
truly resonate with you. So there have been a myriad of times where it has resonated with me, but then the complexity of life comes in and you take a couple steps backwards and you maybe pivot in the other direction towards something that, when you do have the time to reflect, I've gone in a direction that's not the way I want to go. It's away from that quote unquote path. And I think that's the reality that most of us find ourselves in. And I think there's oftentimes been kind of like the sensationalization of that 180 degree turn. And when people don't find that almost like quick fix, that thing that just happens overnight, and they're faced with the reality of there's a lot of steps on that path, and some of them lead you away from that kind of version of yourself that you've idealized, it becomes much more complex and muddy and difficult, and in my eyes, meaningful because of that.
Yeah. I feel like I've been that type of guy. If I'm not still a bit of it. But like, I mean, I like the idea of like 1% turns because my uncle gave me that example. Like, Martin, when you're feeling not so good, don't take the steering wheel and completely go to the left or to the right. Small tweak. And I feel like sometimes certain people might need a 90-degree turn, you know? Because sometimes maybe your gut is really telling you, okay. Like, for example, for me, my gut was telling me, I want to learn stuff. I want to feed myself more knowledge and like learn how to write, learn how to read and stuff. So that was my good 100+ degree angle turn. And since I got into the US now, I've had to do a couple tweaks. My reaction to the tweaks is still super violent. Like, it's still like crazy. But I think that's my next step. It's like accepting that when you're on that like road or on the ocean, waves come banging on the boat, man. And like, if the light is over there and you've got waves coming from the west, it's gonna make you go south a little bit. Sometimes it's okay. Like, just take the steering wheel again and come back.
Yeah, and I think that's why I like the notion of a lighthouse, because when we're on this like described path, the lighthouse is off into the distance. You know it's there, you know it's shining, and in some sense, you believe that that's a correct direction for you to go. But ultimately, you don't see the lighthouse yet.
Yeah.
You don't know what the structure is, you don't know if it's beautiful, you don't know a lot of things about it. And oftentimes, like in life, we set these hard-pressed goals. And the goals are very defined.
Yeah.
We know exactly what they look like. And it creates this binary. And it creates this world in which the goal becomes far more important than the act of getting there.
Yeah.
So like the lighthouse is nice because it is about the continual pursuit. It's about moving in a direction that feels right to you. And there are certain things where it's a little bit more like binary and you can take a 90-degree turn. Like, you know, from from working out to not working out.
Yeah.
You know, it's a 0 to 1. And oftentimes it can be helpful to just say, I would like to work out, and I would like to change the reality I've been living in. And for me, I know myself, I need to take a 90-degree turn there. But on topics like letting emotions run your life, what's interesting is I would say you can take that 90-degree turn, but you'd need something profoundly different to change your life. Because that choice to have emotions dictate your life, if there's enough awareness, it becomes a choice. You can say, I'm going to let it happen or not. But for many of us, we're not quite at that place where it is a choice yet. So it's about getting to that level of awareness.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. You're literally saying that sometimes if you're that far on your path of consciousness and awareness, deciding, all right, I'm going to get angry right now is not bad. I mean, not that getting angry is a bad thing in general, but like, or it is, depending on the context. But okay. Yeah. Is that what you were saying? That
Can you reiterate that?
That basically, if you're on that path far enough that you are conscious and aware of things, that you can control yourself, making the decision to not control yourself is also being aware and conscious.
Well, it's more like if you're not conscious, emotions will dictate your actions. There's a sense of reactivity.
Yeah.
When we're in a state of consciousness, we have the now decision to say, I'm going to feed into the emotion,
Yeah.
or I'm going to very quickly say the emotion is there, but I'm not going to feed into it. I'm not going to have my actions be dictated by that. So it's essentially saying no to the reactivity. But that takes a high level of consciousness, a high presence of mind. And the fact of the matter is, for pretty much all of us, like, we're not 100% in that place. So a lot of it is a very nuanced path of how do I become more aware? How do I bring more of that into my life? And it's not as radical of a change as a 90 degrees oftentimes.
So what I said about making the conscious decision to let yourself be angry, is that can that kind of get close to what you're just saying? Or I feel like you just said that deciding to not react is where a lot of people are not yet.
Yeah, I guess you could be in the place where it's a conscious choice and you could choose to be angry. I think the path that was first described was like how you separate yourself from emotions dictating your life, right?
Yeah.
So keeping with that train of thought.
By the way, like, and sorry, you can keep on going after this, but how do you practically get away from emotions? Not let them creep in.
Yeah, so I think the first thing to speak to there is, for me, it's not about getting away from emotions. That's something that I've fundamentally changed in my mind. Previously, there was a massive isolation from emotions.
So,
it was more of a numbing response, and that is no way to live.
So let me rephrase. How do you make the decision to not let them impact you? And like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, except they're there. Like, some people, because like we can just say, I'm going to decide not to do it. But how do you help yourself to do that?
For me, that oftentimes starts with, in the morning, I've kind of made it my purpose to attune myself. What I say is I attune myself to the symphony of life. And for me, that's seeing myself almost like an instrument. And if I don't consciously come back to myself, I get out of tune. So every morning, I see your guitar over there. I strum the guitar, and I listen, and I say, okay, what's out of tune? What within me is maybe a little bit off? Why am I agitated? Why am I frustrated?
You literally strum the guitar? No.
Metaphorically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, okay. So yeah, but like, okay, physically what you're doing is you're sitting on your sofa or something.
Yeah, so physically I'm sitting down. Oftentimes it's helpful for me to have a notebook, and the words I say is reattune yourself to the symphony of life. And what that means is life is coming at you one note at a time. And where we get caught up in our emotions is something, quote unquote, bad happens to us. And we dwell on that note or that melody, the passage of time. And we get caught up with that note sounding particularly pleasant, or oftentimes it doesn't sit well with us. It sounds like a screech. We don't like it. And I think internally there's also kind of like the reattunement and seeing yourself as an instrument, noticing when you have these particular emotions and when you have residue from the day prior. So oftentimes things will happen and there will be kind of a visceral emotional response. And if we don't catch it in time, that emotional response can go to the next day and the next day and the next day. So practically speaking, I try to sit with myself and just take stock of where I'm at that day.
Interesting. Yeah.
And a lot of times I'll find I'm carrying over frustration from the day before, or on certain days I'll look at my calendar and anxiety comes in, because that is fear for something to come. So when I sit with all those, it allows me to come back to the perspectives that I want to try to have. So first I'll kind of take stock of what's inside. And then another thing that I've found very helpful and practical is I kind of have a life one-pager. And I've started the practice of the things that truly resonate with me. Like if I read something or hear something on a podcast or audiobook, or think a thought that there's that light bulb, they're clicking, oh man, I don't want to lose this. I write that down if it's important enough, and I come back to it every single day. And what happens is, because it's a physical page in my notebook, I have a list of the most important things for me to remind myself and reattune myself to. And when I get to the bottom of the list, there's a forcing measure. That means if I want to add something new, I now have to go through my life one pager and remove something that isn't as important as this new thing.
Okay.
So as time progresses,
You evolve.
And you're cultivating something that is just a wellspring of inspiration or reattunement. And the idea for me is, on a daily basis, it feels like my current mission in life is to reattune myself to love, to get to a baseline of love. So the majority of what's on that page is aimed at that purpose. So when you come back to that baseline and you remind yourself that I don't need to change anything. I don't know anything. These are all beliefs, that I'm going to run into people who have varying emotions. And it's up to me if I want to have my conditioning of, family, of society, of all these different things to dictate my response, or if I want to take the present moment as it is, be in touch and in acceptance with reality, and allow myself to cultivate the continual actions of love, the continual baseline of love. So there's kind of like that presence that you're able to cultivate within that morning, and the more you do it and the more that you're really there with it, when you go into that situation that otherwise would have been frustrating,
Mm-hmm.
you're in a place where you're almost able to dodge that bullet because you have heightened your awareness. You now see this as a trap. You now see this as a path. You now see this as a relic of the past. That's something that's happening in my limbic system that's trying to protect me. But what am I really protecting myself from?
A vestige of the past. I like that.
Yeah. There's not a lion in front of me attacking me. This person might have said something that I didn't like. The next step to that is asking yourself, okay, I had that emotional response. I felt something inside. The reattunement in the morning allows you to have that awareness. And then you have a choice. Okay, I can now allow that emotion to take seed, and I can get on board with the frustration and the negativity and be dragged down. Or I can be curious about it.
Mm.
And when you open that door, you can now go to the next step. And this is kind of like the idyllic version of it, is I have the awareness. I know that this, in some way, had me frustrated. Now I can question why that is. And I can say, okay, why did I have that response, and where is it coming from? Is it coming from something my dad used to say and get pissed off about? Is this something that I've seen on social media time and time again, that this is bad? Is it coming from a true innate belief within myself? Where is this truly coming from? Is a very important question, because now we start to understand why the emotion was there. And sometimes we see that emotion as a warning sign. And that's where emotion is really important, because, hey, I was frustrated because that person did something wrong. Now, instead of me feeding into the frustration and letting it drag me down, I'm able to process that emotion very quickly. And this is where like the term refractory period comes in. Like a lot of this work is about shortening that refractory period, which is the distance between when the emotion bubbles up inside you and when it's fully released. And oftentimes, like, that can take days, months, or even years if it's something that's really impactful or traumatic or something of that nature. And that takes even more processing. But on the day-to-day, if you're able to come in contact with it and you're able to notice it's there,
to reattune yourself,
to then question it, get curious about it, you've now allowed it to be useful. Because sometimes that frustration is, hey, I need to have a discussion here.
Yeah.
I need to maybe change something.
Yeah.
Or the other option is that frustration was coming from a relic of the past. And I don't need to be frustrated about that anymore. There's a person on this planet that would be in the same situation and would never get frustrated by this event.
Yeah.
Why am I?
Well, because your reattuning skills aren't where they can get to yet. So I like that. I like that idea of reattuning yourself. Yeah. I mean, musicians, they reattune their guitar or whatever their instrument is every time before they play.
And I think it's important to, recognize that in my life that this is something important enough to do on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And it also comes from like a point of humility that I'm not at the place where honestly I can go more than a few hours without needing to do that. So
you said you can't go more than a few hours?
Yeah. So it's like I'm at my best when I'm reattuning every couple of hours, right? And
just remind me physically, how do you do it? Like, for example, like you you're working, it's 11:30, and you're like, okay, I need musica. It's a moment. I need to retune myself.
Yep.
How do you do it?
So that's where
through the journal.
Yeah, through the journal, or sometimes like,
because some people would do, like breath work and
Mhm.
stuff. Like personally, I've decided to do breath work all the time now, every day at least. No, it's like there's no debate. It needs to happen every day.
So the breath work is really helpful to release what was there.
Yeah.
And then I think it's important to reset, reattune.
To reattune. Okay.
And that's where the intentionality comes from.
Huh.
So within work and bringing it into the realm of even more practicality, when I have a good meeting and when I do this within my sense of correctness, before every meeting, I have just a list of things that I reattune myself to.
That are
specific for work.
Oh, okay.
So I've looked at, all right, what are the pitfalls within work? Like, where do I get frustrated? Where do I fall from grace? Where do I fall off the horse? And
where is love challenged, maybe?
Yeah, where is love challenged, I think is a great way to put it. And how do I want to see it? Because oftentimes, like, we slip back into that kind of routine and the place that we don't want to be. And it's like, okay, why do I slip back there? And how do I gain better awareness of understanding, okay, I am slipping. What do I need to do to catch myself? So before every meeting, ideally, I'm looking at just kind of this rubric that I run down, and it's similar statements, but more towards work. And it's like, okay, the work you're doing in 1,000 years, nobody's ever going to remember it. In a sense, it doesn't matter. The work doesn't matter. The way you present yourself in this meeting does matter. The way you work matters. Doing it for the sake of doing it is much more important than any outcome here. And ultimately, bringing that loving energy into the meeting is the intention. And work for me has been a place where it's been more difficult to bring that intention in, because quite frankly, like, the logical side of me really takes over oftentimes, because business is a little bit more, how do we get to this goalpost? And there's oftentimes a lot of different places where frustration can seep in.
And so I'm going to ask a question that you obviously do not have to answer. Is that because you're unsure of how much love people in the meeting can come with and meet you with, their like love of your business, their input in what's being talked about, you know what I mean? Like, is it because you're unsure of what people are coming with, or is it just purely because, like, all right, this is business, like, end of the day, whether you're a yoga teacher, you're a broker, whatever, you've got to bring money back to the house to, like, buy stuff, you know what I mean?
I think there are aspects of both. I do think that within most businesses, like, people put on a persona, and it is, in our society, oftentimes that persona is a little bit more cutthroat than a loving one. There's oftentimes, like, zero-sum games being played of how do I win and have somebody else lose. That is definitely ingrained within the fabric of the industry and every industry that I've been a part of since working. So that is an element of it. Within my company, I try to bring in people who have a desire to bring in a loving energy.
And that intuition to feel and know that if you come with love, love is going to get thrown back to you.
Yeah. And then on the other side of things that you're saying, it's like there are more responsibilities, and it's a fair amount of things to juggle. It's okay. It is important for me to meet business goals, because ultimately, if we don't, I can't pay my employees, and that's my A1 priority.
Yeah.
Is to make sure that money is coming in for them, and there is a financial venture at stake. So it's ultimately, okay, how do I bring that responsibility in from a place of, okay, I understand we want to move towards things, but it's when like fear creeps in that it's much more difficult. And there is some complexity where it's you want to bring in the personal aspect of things, and you want there to be fun and light times. And then there are time crunches and there are constraints. And sometimes that logical side takes over, and it's like, okay, I can be much more efficient if I tap into the logical side of my mind.
It's kind of like when I'm talking about tennis.
Yeah.
Like, as I want to guide you to be a happy tennis player and perform, but to hit a good forehand, you need to hit it slightly in front of you. If you decide to hit it back because you want to, biomechanically, it's not going to work. So okay.
And that's where like I'm more susceptible for those blinders to be put on, and for frustration to creep in, and to forget the things that are truly important to me within business.
Yeah.
It's harder for me to, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
And when I come back to the foundation of it, it's like to challenge myself. Those are not excuses, and ultimately I want to bring the same presence, the same loving attitude, and the same sense of it's important to act in the right way, and there's a positive way to get even better results than I'm currently getting with that logical side, that
The
tunnel
one that kind
vision
of
side.
works in a way.
Yeah. There's a reality in which I am loving, it's enjoyable, we're having a ton of fun, it's light, it's all of these things that I want them to be, and we're succeeding.
Exactly.
And we're meeting these goals.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, how do I find more of that, the intersection of all those things? And it does come back to recognizing when that hyper rational is taking effect. And oftentimes that's like a warning signal of, okay, something might be a bit off the rails.
Yeah.
And
something might need retuning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when you are running your own company, that is probably the most important job, is just resetting, realigning, bringing people back to focus of what's truly important. And as I am going a little bit more into my career, the thing I think that's changed the most is just being patient with all of that. There's
patient with other people's ability to reattune to your demands, or
reattune to. I try not to place them as demands in a lot of ways. They're
okay. Sorry, I mean I said demands, but like to your suggestions, maybe, or
to what we collectively view as important, right? And
yeah, because actually, like, I put you, since you're the on paper boss, I put you in that kind of like, okay, I'm the boss. But like, yeah, I mean, I don't even know how you guys interact as a whole, or if it's like, if I walk into your business, would I know that you're the boss?
I would say in some ways yes, in some ways no. Yeah, I think it's important to. Is that the question? Like, what's the question there? Coming back to the heart of it.
No, I think that was kind of ending sort of ish that whole thing. We completely we've been branching out.
Yeah.
Which I'm happy that we're doing this in this way. It could be more structured, but I like it this way. But yeah, I mean, we were talking about how like retuning is important, basically. Yeah. What's something else that I could ask that I want to know? Do you? All right. So I mean, yeah, I feel like me and like people in general would, I think, if they're not as good retuners, I was gonna say as you, but that doesn't even make sense. But like if they haven't even started that journey of retuning, for example, I feel like we should both give a tip, and Joya at one point, if you want to come over and give a tip that you think about on like how to start tuning yourself to yourself. How do you start listening to yourself? Is it through, I'm not going to say it, I'm going to have you start and then have you start and then I'll go last. But
yeah, I think
let's be logical.
Yeah.
Let's like, what would be a tip?
So I'll throw out two. Like one is a clarification of what I said before, which falls into the category of preparation.
Yeah.
So like you're preparing yourself for the day. You're like setting yourself up to journal and just check in with yourself.
Yeah.
The other is the practice of just noticing the emotions. Like that is the beginning, and I think the most accessible thing. Like anybody can do it.
Like labeling it. Like
Yeah.
like you say something that pisses me off. I'm like, okay, I'm angry.
Yeah, I think the base fundamental that everybody should be able to do is just be able to say, there's an emotion there. And some people, it's difficult to categorize. So like, if you can just spot the emotion, that's step one. Step two is if you can label it and you can say, okay, that's anger. And as you label it, you get better and you're saying, that's more of a frustration than an anger. And you have your own internal categorization.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And then you sit with that and you say, okay, let me really feel the anger. Let me really, instead of turning away from it,
like
trying to
shaking
suppress
its hand and like, hey, how you doing?
Turn towards it and just say, okay, what's going on here? What am I feeling? Then the fourth is saying, okay, you've now labeled it. And now the fourth is kind of like the divergent path. Seeing it as like a choice. Do I want to continue to feed into this anger? Or do I want to insert something else here? So for you, it's like breath work, right? Breath work's a great one where it's like, okay, I feel this anger. Historically, this anger has stayed in me and it's dictated my actions. I lash out at people and it propagates, it gets bigger. Let me just do something different. Let me say, okay, there was anger. I'm going to do a little meditation. And this is a practice I've been doing for quite some time. It's called positive intelligence. And that's the basis of the whole thing is you notice it, and they call it a PQ rep, but it's a very small meditation. And there's a bunch of different ones, and you do the one that resonates with you. So within this conversation right now, why I like it is if you said something that pissed me off, luckily nothing has pissed me off.
Luckily for me.
I could take note of that and I could rub my fingers together and you probably wouldn't see it. It would just be happening. But I come back to a sensation in my body, and that's a form of meditation.
Yeah. That's one thing that I need to get good at is like really doing research about meditation. because a lot of people, when you say meditation, they see this, bro. Meditation, probably.
Can it be in different way?
Yeah.
And that's why I love the notion of this PQ rep, because it's much more accessible. A lot of people, there's a stigma around meditation because when
It's
they
like
hear
it's
it,
already too far.
it's way
It's
way
already-
too
yeah,
far.
It's way too far.
And they think it's, how do I take my thoughts and my emotions and remove myself entirely?
Whereas
There's a form of meditation that's correct, but there are so many different flavors. And oftentimes, like, by putting it into that box, we just say it's not for me. But the PQ rep is so much more accessible because there's so many different ways, and there are so many different things that it's just what resonates with you. Oftentimes it's just, how do I bring myself back to my body?
But that, see, I feel like, and then Joya, you're gonna come over. Yes, come over. I feel like the problem with what resonates with you is a lot of people can't even hear themselves. You know what I mean? So, but we'll talk about this a bit more. But how do you want to do it? In French, English?
I'm gonna try to didn't lose the micro. No, I'm gonna stay keeping in English. Gonna
Alright.
try. You're gonna help me if
You're-
I'm wrong
Don't worry.
in my role.
You're great.
So yeah, I'm totally agree with you. And I think like for me, in my case, I think you have to accord like some patience with yourself. Like be honest, it's a work, like you're a beginner. If you want to improve yourself, like be very honest with your mission. You have to like take time. It's not gonna be a changement like right away, because the meditation or just be alert about your mission is not like something easy for everybody, and it's taking time, and you cannot like see, or even us like talking and show our experiences or our viewpoint, something like that.
Viewpoint.
Uh, like it's our perspective, and you just have to get time to see how you work yourself. So it's like taking so much time. For my case, like I didn't do meditation, I didn't write in my book often. I try to, but when I feel like hungry or like just listening people like can make me feel like sadness, emotion, or something like that, I'm just gonna like stay positive, accepted what they say, and just stay.
Excuse me.
It's okay. Bless you. Stay with like taking time to understand what they say, making my own point, and then learn what about like what they teach me or what they told me. But it's taking time. Like be patient, and you don't like have the right way. You can have like different way. You cannot like do the it's working for someone, it's not gonna work for you for sure. But maybe yes, but at some point like you just have to find your own like thing.
Yeah.
Voilà.
Can I plus one that?
Yeah.
Of course.
So I think it's so important what you said, where it's like, what I gather from that is like to meet yourself where you're at.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I feel like people hear things and they say, I have to do exactly that.
Yeah.
And I think just rewinding and just taking stock of like, what is the purpose of what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of meditation is not to say I meditated. You're seeking a benefit. You're seeking an understanding of yourself. You're seeking a bit more peace. So if you start by just trying to follow the direction of another person for what's worked for them without taking just a step back and saying, is this accessible to me? Does it make sense? Do I view it as true? Is it going towards the desired outcome? Like, we oftentimes run into it and then we feel like we've therefore failed it. because we first haven't truly understood what it is we're trying to do, where we're at ourselves, and are we ready to take that piece of advice on board?
Yeah.
And is this the right piece of advice for me? Oftentimes we just try it on and it's not the right piece of advice. Like
Yeah.
And you feel like kind of losing. You didn't accomplish what
a
you
failure.
wanted. Yeah,
Yeah.
failure. Yeah, like stopping comparison with each other. Like just take the thing is gonna, like, you can try something and fail. It's okay, but you learn. Like learning what was wrong for you, and stopping like maybe comparison with someone is not at your level in the meditation process. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's like the stigma around the meditation process of like these different levels, and it's like I need to be a black belt meditator, but it's such a personal endeavor that I think we need to come back to just really isolating why am I doing this, and what's the right way to enter into it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if it's like, if I asked you to just go sit in a room and not think a thought, you'd be like, no, that's
No,
not for
thank
me.
you.
F that, right? And then if you said, okay, I trust you, I'll try it, and then you go and do that,
Mm-hmm.
and you inevitably think thoughts, you've now walked away and you've labeled yourself as a failure, and it turns you off of it. And that's like the complete opposite intention of meditation. Meditation is there to isolate certain things, and you don't have to, it's very difficult to not think a thought. There's very few people in the world that can do that. So like we need to understand our current reality and do something that,
If it's even factually possible.
yeah, I think there's,
I don't think it. I mean, emotions pop out like every 12 seconds or something like that.
yeah.
So
We can get to certain practitioners claim that they can get to that place. For how long, I'm not sure. But you certainly, like an average person can't just go in and like that, not think anything. So I think it's important to meet yourself where you're at, ask, why am I doing this?
exactly.
And
That is
this the right practice for me?
Yeah.
And also, if I'm going to try something, kids rush into things and just try it. They're not afraid of failure. But they oftentimes try a bunch of different things, and they'll find something that they do succeed at. So like within that same logic, how do I break this down into something that's so simple that I do feel like I've succeeded, and I get a little glimpse of the purported benefits?
Yep. Exactly. It makes me think of like the whole culture thing of no pain, no gain, and like people believing that like pain is the only way to grow, especially like in the muscular world, like where you have to go to failure.
Yeah.
And muscular failure. And when you get there, your muscle, like you have pain. It hurts. Like when you're doing curls and you get to the last rep and your bicep. But like, I mean, now like studies and stuff show that actually like, because like the whole point of this whole discussion and like the whole point of me doing this podcast is to better myself, is to increase myself, is to keep making those steps. I want to get better. But like we've been realizing that the no pain, no gain isn't the way. It's a part of what you need to take on that path, accepting that sometimes it's not going to be the little waves. It's going to be a big ass wave coming at your shit. And okay, because I know that no pain, no gain, I can take that on. But it's about like taking care of yourself, like deeply. This is what we're doing. Like we're we're talking deeply because we want to be able to know ourselves so well that when shit comes at us, we'll be able to quickly tune. And I feel like maybe for me, I'm just thinking about it right now, but like maybe deep down on the path, it's like I've reattuned myself like 10 minutes ago. Let me put a visual. And like I can see a curveball coming at my face, and I intentionally tune myself in another way to react to it. Like, I don't know, like I did like 3 hours of meditation straight. I'm not there yet, guys. Don't worry, I'm not there yet. But I do that. And then I'm at a train station and I hear people yelling downstairs. Well, maybe like I can reattune myself to maybe get the violent side on to protect people if I need to. Like not be like, oh, I'm a guru, I'm a guru. You know what I mean? So it's like really meeting yourself with love where you're at. And kind of like what you said, not judging yourself, but like really like being very kind to yourself. Because I'm getting to the point where like if I feel that the person that I'm talking to doesn't love themselves, I can't trust them to love me. Because if you don't grow your own garden, like, you know, that image, butterflies won't be coming to your garden. You know, it's not by going to go get the butterflies that you're gonna have them. Cultivate your garden and the butterflies will come. So it's like, and I think that's a fine line where a lot of people think that ego is the thing, and like self-love is egotistical and stuff, but it's not. It's about like caring for yourself so deeply that you can give even more to others. And I think a factual way for me to really like do it and like to tune myself to myself is by talking to people.
Yeah.
Like but talking to people with an open mind, and that I think I have that innate desire to understand and to see the world through your lens. But now I perfect that ability by meditating, by journaling, by learning how to structure an idea, by reading, understanding a text, to when I start a discussion with somebody new or with you guys in a couple months, I'm like, I'm ready, man. I'm ready to receive you and see you. And that, and really focusing on seeing you makes me like get even better at doing little tweaks on my own path. Because like I sense something that you might say that might completely resonate, and then it's going to take a bit of mud off of my boat, right? Because you said it with words that I never use myself, for example. So my physical way, I mean my logical way of like being on this path of consciousness and stuff is to really listen to somebody when I'm talking to them, like making sure that I'm not judging what they're saying with my own with my own perception of things. And it's like, it's not easy. I'm gonna make that mistake of judging someone. I will, you know, I will. I wish to outgrow that, but it's like, it's so much fun, as we said earlier, to walk through your day and your discussions, and with that belief in the back of your head that I don't know shit. Because I love how, and I mean, I don't know how long we've been going for, but like, I feel like we could kind of conclude here the first time I had a discussion with Kenny, you were here.
Yeah.
He blew my fucking mind out of my fucking skull.
Yeah.
Because that fucking example of oh my fucking god, the two Small World cups having the red logo on it and saying that red is not the same as that red, and I remember looking at Joy like, who the fuck is that guy? What the fuck is he talking about? But then you like completely rationally, logically explaining it, and I feel like we were both already on that path of like accepting things. That really that destroyed like so many fucking walls and so many frames of like, actually none of you motherfuckers who are looking at this right now can say that you know more than us, and we can't say that we know more than you because nobody knows. Quite literally. And it's true, like nobody knows exactly what an electron is, like what is it. So that's the fucking start of everything. So you can't explain anything else. Of course, we've all decided as a society to say that this thing is a dog, that this is a pair of pants, and this is a ring. Okay, but it's made of the things that we said that we can't explain. So I feel like, yeah, I mean, once you tune yourself to that fact, that might actually be the only fact there is, worries disappear. Everything disappears. And you are much more attuned to everything. So I feel like when we had that discussion, I was afraid after that, in the sense that I was like, holy shit, wait, if I start thinking like this, I'm going to disconnect myself from things that I actually enjoy. Like cutting that piece of cheese and enjoying that motherfucker and be like, this is goat cheese from the southwest of France. You know what I mean? But I feel like right now my tuning is like keeping that in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And like whenever the negatives appear, I summon it, and then I try to just, enjoy the moment. And yeah.
Yeah, I think with those like really big universal concepts that just like can be mind shattering.
Yeah.
There's oftentimes like an associated fear because there's such a paradigm shift. It changes the way that you potentially view the world.
Yeah.
And that challenges your identity. It challenges safety.
It challenges everything.
It challenges what you've previously attributed value to. And what I've found with those big things is oftentimes there's a sense of like duality that comes with things. Like in Buddhism, if I'm getting it right, there's kind of this principle of viewing whatever is in front of you as the most important thing. So if I were to get up and I was to blow my nose, I would view that as the most important thing because it's the thing I'm doing, while holding at the same time, the belief that nothing matters at all.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, it's very hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah. And
if you cling on to one of them, you can find yourself down the path of like nihilism, that nothing matters. I'll just throw up my hands.
Yeah, no, that's dangerous.
So it's like, it's about holding and finding yourself in the intersectionality of those things. And it allows you to like challenge yourself. And I think like when you come at it from the perspective of like love, of like, okay,
yeah,
I want this to bring happiness and joy to me. So I'm not going to apply it in a way that isolates me from enjoying my cheese and saying, oh, this takes me back home to the things I love. It's delicious. It's amazing. And it's like, okay, let me hold all of that, but also remember kind of like the other aspects.
Yep. Yeah.
So rewinding a little bit, one thing that I wanted to challenge or to dive a little bit deeper is something that you had said previously, which was, I don't know if I can trust people who don't love themselves. Can you expand upon that and kind of what you mean by that? Because taken out of context, that could be dangerous.
So if someone is like very like super negative self-talking and stuff, I'm not gonna like, I'm gonna, if you're my friend, I'm gonna try to, I could guide you through that system, because eventually like I don't want to like have you around me to a like too big of an extent, because like because like I mean, you're not putting yourself as a source. Like if you don't take care of yourself, you're not filling yourself up to then like kind of spill out love that can go to people around you. And you're gonna you can like, you can rely on me. If you're my friend, you can rely on me, but like there's relying on me and relying on me. And like if you don't care for yourself, I fear you might want me to care for you more than you care for yourself. So it's like the word trust is maybe a bit of a big word. Like I could trust someone who doesn't love themselves, but it's about just like, do I want to take you on the whole boat ride? That I will put into question. And I feel like I'll sense if someone has the amount of land that can be turned into a garden to be around me for an extended period of time. But if I feel like you're deciding and taking the decision to not harvest, and to not put your hand into the fire sometimes, to actually outgrow certain ways of doing things, then I'll think about it, you know. But I know maybe trust was a bit hefty duty.
A big word. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we are all part of the community.
True.
And people like, we are not at the same level.
Yeah.
And it's not because they didn't love themselves, they
That
didn't want to grow.
No, you're so right. You're so right. I mean, there's people who are clinically depressed and who can be counted on, but and who can be trusted. That was the word.
I think you didn't put the right word.
Yeah.
What do you want to say? But
Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah, the reason why I wanted to double click into it is because taken out of context, that can be applied in a potentially destructive way, where it's like, everybody I see who's not loving themselves, I'm just going to dismiss, right? I'm going to not trust. Yeah. And I think like part of the reason I wanted to double click into that is I think that's honestly like a epidemic of society these days is show me a handful of people who truly do love themselves.
Yeah.
Like that is, I think, the work that is in front of a lot of us. Like that's been part of the path that we keep mentioning for myself, is like coming back to a place where I do love myself. And I do think it is important to understand when somebody is not loving themselves, because like trust is a very powerful word, And I think there's importance to have the awareness that this person is coming from a place of fear, which is the opposite of loving themselves.
Yeah.
And fear always comes with consequence.
But I feel like, so maybe I might still want to use trust, because like,
Yeah.
if you are on the, if I can sense that you are in that range of 0 to 15 first steps of your path,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like you're walking, there you go. You love yourself. You're just really early on your path. I have some friends who when I met them, oh my God, they hadn't made it to the first like bar
Mm-hmm.
down the road, like, you know, but I could sense the desire and the love for themselves to find ways to put themselves at peace with themselves. Whereas some people, I feel like they are the ones, you know, when I started the whole thing, I said some people don't even know there's a path, but they think they know.
Mm-hmm.
They think they know. Those people are very dangerous. Super dangerous.
Yeah, I think it's a very personalized decision, because like fundamentally what I would say to myself is like, who am I to judge where they are on their path, how many steps I feel like they're in, where they're headed, because all we're getting is a representation of that person, and then we're slapping judgments on them. All we get is a slice of their life and the way that they interact with us and how they talk with us and their disposition. But then we don't get to see what's happening in their mind. And whether or not there was a choice made, or whether or not that there's just a subconscious program running them. Or, you know, are they going from that interaction to do a tremendous amount of good in the world? We don't know. So I think it's important to come back to that as like a foundation. That's something I try to do. But then on the practical sense, I do think it is important to understand, how are people showing up in your life? And I think a portion of adulthood is the ability to cultivate those people. And I do think there's different kind of levels of how much grace we give people. Is this like a long-standing childhood friend who I know them at their core, or at least I think I do, who might be having a rocky patch that I'm going to see them through? And it's okay if there's a bit of negativity coming in, because I can infer what's on the other side. Or is this some random person I met on the street and, you know, they're being belligerent, and I want to say, okay, let me sidestep that and not kind of trust them, and so to speak. So I think it's important. Like, I just wanted to open it up because it is multifaceted.
Yeah.
And it's up to each of us to say, okay, what is appropriate for me? What boundaries do I need to set? And ultimately, where am I at and what's important to me? Because for some people, they might actually welcome those people who might be perceived as destructive forces, because they're the best teachers in the world, because they're more difficult to be around, because they're pouring this, you know, negativity. It gives you a challenge to potentially work on yourself. Whereas you might view them as, oh, this is going to suck me down, and I don't want that in my life. So I think it's important to see like all the different permutations that could take on.
Yeah.
And
like decide if you are maybe too sensitive to take the decision to interact with that.
Yeah, I think it's important to reattune
I mean,
yourself.
I've parted ways with like a friend I had, and like I parted ways for things that happened like 3 years before, and at some point I was like, you know what, I can't fake it. Like, I'm gonna part ways with you, and that person is not a bad person. Like,
Yeah.
That person has never been a bad person, but there was a slice of the cake in which they were a bad person, like, and I was one of the collateral damage. And for my self-worth and stuff, I was like, nope, it's all good, take care of yourself. See you around.
Yeah, and what I would call that, to kind of like challenge it in a sense,
Yeah.
is like that's a story that you're retelling.
Yeah.
That is something that's happened in the past that you're clinging on to in the present. And what you remember is probably actually slightly different than the reality that played out. But you're clinging on to the emotion and the story, and it's impacting how you see that person. You're not seeing that person how they are today. You're seeing them wrapped up in the story of 3 years ago.
No.
Plus
Oh,
how they are today.
Oh, so you mean when I made the decision?
Yeah, when you made the decision.
Oh.
And I'm not saying it's the wrong decision.
No, yeah.
But I think it's important for us to like take stock of what's going on there. And that's part of like meeting yourself where you're at. If you're at the place where that story is really dictating how you see them, and it's leading to a negative relationship and a point of negativity in your life, and you say, okay, every time I think of them, I see them, I text them, I hang out with them, I'm skewing a bit more towards the negative side. I think it is important to say, that's where I'm at, that's where they're at, and maybe there's a boundary I need to put. Or this is a person that doesn't have a place in my life right now.
Yeah.
So I think it's, again, very, very detailed and nuanced, and there are multi-layers to it. But part of it is you are having emotional reactivity that surrounds your story. And like that's where the ownership comes in to say, this is not wholly them. This is my interpretation of them. And the more we do that, the more I think we see reality closer to kind of what it is.
Yeah.
And then it allows us to inform ourselves maybe a little bit, dare I say, better. But again, we have to come back to the reality of we are humans. And sometimes we're not at the place where we say, okay, I would love to be in a place where I just meet them with a bunch of positivity and joy and love, and that it doesn't matter who I'm meeting, it's going to be great either way. That's a great ideal, but oftentimes we're really not there yet. And we're just like, where I'm at now, they're not going to be conducive to what's important to me, which is time with people that I really connect with, positivity, self-growth, whatever it might be for you.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you can make the decision to give love to everything, but sometimes you can make the decision to not give anything, to not give. Like, to everything that you give love, but sometimes some things or people that you don't want to interact with anymore, you don't give anything, whether it's hate or love. You just,
Yeah, it's kind of like a notion that I came up in some book I was reading. The author was talking about responsibility. And the definition that he placed on it was loosely your ability to respond to something accurately. So it's more so the ability to see what's in front of you for what it is.
Yeah.
And then oftentimes we pair responsibility with the action. His notion was responsibility is the ability to see, and that's the important part. What we do afterwards should be dictated from that clear sense of reality, and then there's a choice to act or not to act. And I think that's like, where does that choice come from? I think it's better when it's coming from a place of a clearer picture of what we're looking at. And then when we attune ourselves to love, we now are coming from, okay, I'm going to be guided through this action towards what I know as love. And that's like very hard to grasp at because
Yeah.
it's such an intangible thing.
Yeah.
But we can, I think a lot of us possess the ability to say, I can kind of see that this is a fearful action if I were to go with, scratch their car or something. That's probably out of fear and hatred, right?
Yeah.
And then the loving thing to do is to say,
it's like, yeah, as you said earlier, at some point, if you can feel it,
yeah,
it feels right.
yeah.
So,
When it makes sense in your mind and it feels right,
yeah.
and you're looking at the picture clearly, you are now probably doing the best that you can. And that's coming from a perspective that the way you're viewing it is unique to you in this moment. Another person will see it very different, and you 10 years from now will also see it very different. But all we have is
because your perception will be different.
Yeah.
You know what? I mean, if you guys don't have anything to add, I kind of want to end it here because a definition that I've wanted to have Did I say a definition? Did I say a definition?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Not a definition. A kind of like the end sentence, the outro.
Okay.
You guys know Jesse James West, the YouTuber?
No.
His killer sentence is "Stay relentless," and I like that. In like every end of video, he's like "Stay relentless," and the one I want to have completely bounces off of what we were just talking about. It's like making the choice to choose love, and my sentence is love will always prevail. Always. So, yeah, that's that.
Mhm.
If you guys want to...
Vive l'amour.
Exactement. L'amour gagnera toujours. Toujours.
Love.
Always. Just remember, love will always prevail. Voilà.